Welcome to another episode of the 116 Life here on Holy Culture Radio, Sirius XM Channel 140. Shout out to everyone that's tuned in this week. We hope you guys are feeling rejuvenated, refreshed. I'm gonna tell you guys something. I'm not gonna lie to you. I came in a little low energy. I'm not gonna lie. But shout out to Connor, who is the GOAT in the office as of right now in my book. Y'all, anyone who knows me knows that breakfast is a love language of mine. And I came in a little tired trying to find something, and Connor was like, want me to make you some eggs? And I was like, Connor, you just don't understand, man. So Connor's the GOAT for doing that, man. Shout out to Ace. He is out this week, y'all. But listen, we have a great guest this week. Someone who works here at Reach Records and plays a big part behind the scenes in so many different areas. And we're going to get into the 116 life he's living right now. We want to welcome Joe Malone to the show.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. I feel good. I'm honored to be here. To be honest, a little nervous.
Why?
I don't know. You know, I'm just normally like, I'm the guy behind, I'm like, the guy behind the camera, then there's another guy behind him, and I'm normally the guy behind him.
Behind him. Got you.
So now I'm in front of it. And
Yeah.
You know, it's a little new for me, but I'm excited.
No, it's fitting. You just celebrated a birthday, bro. Happy belated birthday. What was your birthday celebration like?
Pretty low key.
Okay.
You know, 28, it's not that exciting of a birthday. You know, getting older. Mm-hmm. First year that I feel like I started thinking about how old I'm getting and like how fast life is going. Mm-hmm. But I spent some great time with my wife, some friends, enjoyed some of the things that I love. Huge into golf, so my wife took me out to a bucket list course. And then also went to a really cool DJ, a vinyl DJ like lounge where they're like actually spinning real records here in Atlanta. So hung out with some friends and it was a good time.
A low-key birthday celebration is like kind of
That's
vibe.
my love language. You just talking about breakfast being your love language. I just like big groups is not my thing.
Man, listen.
I like just hanging with a few close friends, kicking it, having conversation. Yeah, that's my vibe.
What was a takeaway from year 27 that you're bringing into year 28?
Man, a takeaway from year 27. I feel like my 27th year of life was honestly one of my favorite years of life. It was an adventurous year, got to travel more than I ever have and experience different cultures. It was a year of kind of like personal development for me, like just getting more confident in who I am and the talents and skills that I bring to what I do, and just also like the person that I am. And yeah, I feel like for me it was, if there's a takeaway, I guess it's just like continuing to kind of walk in that path of just like challenging myself to get uncomfortable and to do new things and to experience new experiences and learn and grow. And I feel like I did that last year, so I hope to do more of that this year. Yeah,
you mentioned golf. How long you been golfing?
So I got back into golf probably like 4 years ago. I wasn't super into it ever before then. I grew up, played baseball pretty much solely like through into college a little bit. And then later in college, I started picking it up just because, you know, I have that competitive juices flowing and I wanted to get out there and do something. But then when I moved here, I didn't really know anybody who golfed. And then COVID hit and everybody started looking for a way to get outside and hang out with people and it blew up. And so then I got back into it from there. And now I think it's just a way for me to kind of like have that rhythm that I've had my whole life of like working on something, trying to like improve in skill level at something physical. And so, yeah, I love it. And
I was going to ask, what do you like about it specifically? Because I feel like golf is one of those like rare sports where you have to really be into it. It's not like other sports where it's loud. You know what I'm saying? It's a different type of technique to it. What do you love about golf specifically?
A lot of times the environment is really beautiful, which I love. It's a great excuse to get outside, which is really good for you. It's also a cool way to like build friendships and hang out with people because you're out there for 4 or 5 hours and around, and you're just I mean, you're probably actually playing golf for like an hour, and then the rest of the time you're just sitting and talking to each other.
Yeah.
So I love that. And also since COVID, the culture around the game has really evolved, and I think there's a lot of, you know, people who are just into other creative spaces that are getting into it and bringing some of that flavor to it, which I really enjoy.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm just kind of engulfed in it. Wow. No
Bro,
pun
that was
intended.
perfect. That was perfect.
Yeah.
Joe, I didn't even realize how long you've even been here at Reach, but talk a little bit about the role you play here and all that entails.
Yeah. So my role here is marketing ops director. When I started, it was social media, and then I kind of worked my way into merchandising alongside social media. And then, like, just as time went on, I just started getting involved with all things marketing. Marcus at the time was leading the team, and shout out to Reach for having great benefits. You know, he had a couple kids, and he was able to take time off and be with his family. And then I got like a ton of experience in content production, press, radio, you know, just overall strategy and kind of working with the team for upcoming releases on the marketing end. And then just kind of found myself in this position now of like working with our whole team to oversee our entire rollouts, overall strategy, and then really getting in the weeds on making sure content is king right now. So making sure that all of our content is being executed well, people are being treated well, and that it just comes out the way that we envisioned it for, you know, hopefully the music to reach as many people as possible. So
yeah, you mentioned starting with social media but working your way up the marketing ladder. Was marketing always like the interest of yours and like the goal?
Nah. Yeah, I mean, there's a whole story that kind of led me to getting here, but marketing was never something on my brain until I ended up here, or the music industry, really. I grew up in just a very kind of suburban area. Like, everyone's just kind of chasing the American dream. And so my mindset was always just set on like getting a solid job that pays well, you know, take care of my family. And towards the end of my time in college, I just wasn't satisfied. And I was just like, man, I want what I do to feel more purposeful and like it's making an impact. And then I was just like, I got a bachelor's in business. Marketing is kind of adjacent. Maybe I can go that route and figure something out. And then Reach Internship. I had been a fan of Reach's music for the longest time.
Really?
Yeah. And so I was, you know, I'd always seen their internships, but I was like, I can't. That's not me. That's not what I'm studying. That's not my expertise.
Yeah.
But when that kind of transition happened, I was like, I'm going to apply for that. And God came through and I ended up here.
Okay, so I got to ask you, so what was the first 116 song you got introduced to?
Oh, I feel like, so shout out to my oldest cousin, Aaron. He's back in Michigan. He put me on to Christian rap. And I feel like he probably showed me some Lecrae song, because that's, you know, that's how everyone started. But the one that I remember like first really resonating with was Go Hard on Rebel.
Okay.
Like, I remember being down in my room, just kicking it and just blasting that song on repeat.
Yeah.
I loved how raw it was and how aggressive it was. And what Lecrae was kind of diving into his verse, just like full out, like I am on mission for the kingdom. Like, I'll die for this type energy.
Yeah.
I just loved it. So yeah, I feel like that was the first song that I was like,
So you said the internship, you didn't think that was something you wanted to do.
Yeah.
But then you ended up doing it. So what?
It was more so marketing.
Got you.
That I was like, I wasn't thinking about that. But it was, it was when, so here's the story. When I was graduating school, I got a bachelor's in business, but I was studying to become a financial advisor.
Okay.
And I was interviewing at a few different positions and was basically on a track to get into a pretty large financial agency that mostly worked on retirement plans.
Oh, fun.
Yeah, right? Oh, fun.
Someone's got to do it, but
Someone's got to do it. And so, the whole thing was just like, oh, you'll make really good money doing this. And I think for a while I was like trying to generate purpose around it.
Yeah.
Like I was like, oh, this would be a really good way for me to, share the gospel with people by like, being just like someone that looks like Jesus when helping them plan how to finish out the rest of their life, like figure out how they can settle down and, I was coming up with stuff.
Yeah.
Which, I think, like you said, someone does have to do it. And honestly, as I've even grown over the years here at Reach, like I actually see a lot more value in positions like that now than I once did. But yeah, I think I was just young and I was just like, man, is this really going to be my life? Like, I'm just going to show up in a suit and, talk to people about, what they should do with their money so that they can just kind of live another 10, 15 years and move on. And I was just like, this just doesn't feel right. And like I said, at the time, I was a huge fan of Reach. And so like, that was probably my cousin probably introduced me to the music maybe like 4 or 5 years before that. I was in high school. And, I, was going to everybody's shows. I was tapped in.
Oh, yeah,
I was tapped in with the culture. I think if you go on the Reach store right now, you could find me as like one of the top merch customers.
Oh, yo, you were locked in.
I was locked in. And so, I think I went with my wife now, my girlfriend at the time, to Andy's show. And it was the Friends and Family tour. And he performed an unreleased song that just like, it was just like a moment of, I was just like overcome with like a very evident and peace, like a peace around making the decision to just not do that anymore.
Oh, wow.
And at that point, I was like, I'm going to call these places and I'm going to say, I'm out. Thank you for the opportunity, but I'm good. And then from there, that was all I knew in that moment. And so then from there, it was like, okay, like these are the tools I got though. What can I do with this to try to get to a place where I feel like I'm purposed to be? And that's when the idea of like pursuing marketing came in. And then I was just like, okay, what companies could I do this thing for that I feel like I could really get behind the mission of it. And Reach was one of those. And I just took a shot and it worked.
Sheesh. Went from wanting to be a financial advisor, insurance,
to retirement.
Right. To now doing that. What do you remember about the early stages of like being on the internship team here?
Man, I remember just like, it was a dream. I feel like, getting the internship to begin with was like shocking. And, shout out to Logan Russell. He's still here on the team, a good friend now. And, he accepted me in and it was a funny process. He was just like, try to find a place to live and then be here by this date. And I was like, you have any suggestions? Like, I'm not from here. Like, and he was like, I don't know, hit up a pastor.
He said, hit up a pastor?
Yeah.
Logan was... So what did you end up doing?
So I was just like, if something comes through, like I wasn't really in a financial position to be like, I'll just go pay my way to live down there. Like some opportunity had to come through. And, I was just kind of like, if something comes through, then God wants me there. And eventually, like 3 days before I had to get down here, a host family opportunity came up. Someone my mom had worked with like years before who moved down here and was like, we got a house, extra bedroom.
Whoa.
Like he can stay here for free. And it was just like, oh, okay. All right, let's go.
Right, for real.
And then, I just remember getting here and just being like, so ecstatic to be here and just excited for to be in the mix and for the opportunity, and just like, I mean, I never left.
Yeah.
Like I got here 30 minutes early and I left 3 hours late.
Yeah.
Like I was here all day, trying to, bring some value to different people, help with what was going on in any way that I could or knew how. And yeah, worked out.
I love hearing stories like that where it seems as if there's absolutely like you're trying to figure things out on how to make a big move like that.
Yeah.
And then something opens up. Because for me, it just seems as if God's like, okay, yeah, this is where I want you. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like the definition of provision. And when we come back, we're going to dive more into early stages, childhood, and life. We're really diving into life, Joe.
Yes, let's go.
As always, here on the 116 Life on Holy Culture Radio, Sirius XM Channel 140. Joe Malone, Meah Evans. We'll be right back. And we're back on the 116 Live here on Holy Culture Radio, Sirius XM Channel 140. I'm here with the man, the myth, the legend, Joe Malone here. We're talking all things life. So you talked about this in the last segment. So you grew up in the suburbs. So I want to dive more into just like what life was like for young Joe, like childhood, upbringing, things like that. Like what was life like for you? What do you remember growing up?
Yeah. I was blessed with a great childhood, I think. I had amazing parents that supported me heavily in whatever that I wanted to do. I think they brought me up well. They taught me to be disciplined and just gave me great environments to practice that. I'm a middle child. I had an older sister and a younger sister.
Middle children.
Yeah, let's go.
Yes, yeah.
I also grew up around like a lot of women. So I feel like I just kind of from that experience maybe came out with a little bit more of like a tender, I don't know, you tell me.
No, yeah.
I just feel like I'm actually grateful that that was my environment. And I was just very fortunate and blessed. I, playing sports, going to school, hanging with friends, playing a bunch of video games, the standard kind of suburb like lifestyle. And also was very tight with the rest of my family. My cousins lived up the street from me. We kicked it every day. We'd go to the YMCA, we'd hoop, we'd swim. It was a lot of fun. I cherish a lot of memories from my childhood. And then, my family was always super heavily involved in church. My dad's a drummer, has been drumming in the church for as long as I've been alive. My mom was on the worship team as well when I was younger. And then my sister got into singing heavily and has been on the worship team,
So low-key kind of surrounded by music, would you say?
Low-key, yeah. But I never like fully got into it. I regret this decision a little bit, but I was drumming heavily when I was younger, and my dad was teaching me. And I was just like, I want to be really good at sports. And so I just dropped all of that.
Yeah.
And now looking back, I'm like, dang, I can't do anything with these sports. It would be cool if I could still drum.
Yeah.
So, I'm hopeful one day that I can kind of revisit that and my dad can teach me again. Grew up with a lot of family around, kicking it. What I was saying was just heavily involved in the church. I was there all day, every Sunday, youth nights, all the stuff, and just kind of lived pretty timid life growing up.
What do you mean by timid life?
I just feel like everything was very comfortable. Like there wasn't many challenging, what I would consider like challenging environments for me growing up. For the most part, I was around people that were like me and looked like me. So there was never like cultural challenges in that way. I didn't have any real issues in my family to where it was like super traumatic experiences or anything like that. I think it wasn't until like later in life for me where I realized like, oh, there's a lot more to this life than what I've experienced growing up. So yeah, that's what I mean.
You said something in the last segment about just getting the American dream, you know, like just the usual. And those things are kind of connecting, hearing you talk, saying how like, you know, things are just like kind of comfortable. Like, you know, you kind of go after what everyone's kind of going after during that time. And then now connecting to hearing you talk about you leaving Michigan, coming to Atlanta. Talk about what that tension could have even been for you, moving out of, honestly, completely out of your comfort zone, new city where everyone, moving from where everyone looked like you to Atlanta where it's different. Going into a different career path than most people. Just talk about maybe what that tension, like, you know, thinking about all those things when.
No, I mean, it was definitely super uncomfortable. And at the same time, it felt like, I can't pass on this. Like, I'm a little nervous because like, I think I grew up in the environment that I grew up. I think I was kind of conditioned to be like, I need to do things to like make people around me kind of feel comfortable or proud of what I'm doing. And I was like, I don't know if I can do that, but it was just too great of an opportunity to pass up. So I think I was nervous, but I also think a little bit before then, I was just starting to like, you know, I mentioned off air, like I never thought about leaving Michigan, but I think when that moment happened that I talked about, it was just like, it was a realization that like everything that I've thought this life was about, maybe it's not about that. And I think from that point on, I was just like curious to find new experiences and to explore a little bit. And so I was very excited. I think I came down here and was like, I'm gonna try to fit in and put together the worst fits and
wait, dive into that. What do you mean by wanting to fit in?
I mean, it was just like I loved hip hop and I loved I started getting into like sneaker culture and there were things that were natural interests of mine, but I was just like, I don't know. I guess I was just like, I want to make sure everyone likes me. Maybe that was just kind of extending from that. And so, you know, I have a track record of doing that. Like with my wife, it was like, ooh, I want her to like me. I went and bought a whole new wardrobe from Kohl's. Looking like an idiot.
Shout out to Kohl's.
And so, you know, I think that was something that was kind of baked into me. And when I was coming down here, I was like, okay, I want to make sure the same thing. And yeah, I mean, it ended up being some of the most transformative years of my life so far. I think I've been able to learn so much about myself, about God and like the life that he calls us to. And I'm so grateful to have made that choice and to have come here and gotten that experience.
Since being here, I can only imagine the growth that took place in your relationship with God from when you were in Michigan, you know, being in church and things like that, then moving here. Was there any growth or any like depth, like stretching your faith with being here?
Yeah. Oh, a lot. I mean, I think you can imagine growing up in the environment that I did, that like everyone's kind of like operating in a similar way. And I think, one of the, I guess, common opinions around the church or Christians in general is that there's a little bit of like hypocrisy with like what we're called to do, but what we prioritize, the Pharisees to true followers of Jesus. And so I think in a lot of ways, unintentionally, like when I think about my faith in Michigan, like I was so concerned with doing a good job and like making people proud of me that I wasn't really truly following Jesus. I was trying to follow his rules and make sure that people were proud of me. And I think once I came down here, it was just like moment after moment of like, whoa, you think a lot differently than I do, or like, whoa, you have a different opinion on this. And I very much was just in a place of like curiosity and wanting to soak that up. And it just kind of made me realize like there's a lot more to this, to following Jesus, to this life than I ever considered. And that new environment kind of revealed that. Yeah.
When you say more to this,
Yeah.
what do you mean by that?
I think I mean like God has called us to be more than just people who do what he says.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, he's called us to do that, but it looked a lot different than what I thought it was growing up. If that makes sense.
What do you think it was growing up?
I very much thought it was just like, don't do these bad things.
Go to church every Sunday.
Go to church.
Read your Bible.
Pray.
Yeah, right.
Which are all good things that we all should do.
No, absolutely. Not downplaying any of those things.
But when I say there's a lot more to this, it was just like, oh, it's not that simple. I think the American church has tried to simplify what it means to be a Christian by just doing those things. And it's like, oh, if you do that, then you'll get to where you want to be. You'll live for eternity, and life will be better. And that's just not true. And there is truth to that, and there's also just more that God has called us to. And I think I just started to discover that as I put myself in a new environment.
Yeah. Since when you started elevating since being here at Reach for 6 years, which honestly I think is like commendable. You know what I'm saying? Because I think people just, not saying that people don't stay at jobs long, but I mean, you could easily have gained experience and then just like, left. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
In what ways of you even being here as a marketing ops director, the things that you have grasped in that time of like, being comfortable with who you are, and just like, feeling maybe even in a sense being comfortable with being uncomfortable, that maybe even transfer being here.
Yeah. I mean, I think I had to learn, or what I learned very quickly is how important it is to be aware of and be in culture outside of Christian spaces, to understand, like, this is marketing and also just for personal life, like to understand how other people operate, the why behind who they are now and what they do, and knowing their experience, and being able to foster those relationships. I think that's been a personal journey. And then on the marketing side, it's like, that's what Reach does. That's like what we're here to do. Like we go into, it's our mission to go into spaces and change the way that people see the world. So, we can bring the gospel. This music is for people who are believers, but it's our goal that it reaches people who maybe aren't all the way there yet.
Right, yeah.
And so it takes people who are willing to go into those spaces and build relationships and walk with those people and witness to them.
Yeah. If I could be honest, since being on the team here, that's one thing I've learned through Ace, Matt, and D, is how important it is. Like, don't get me wrong. We could talk about scripture, things that encourage us, things like that.
Yeah.
But also along with that being somewhere in this world, of course not of it, and the fact that it's good to consume the culture, and then the lens in which we have, how can we be able to share the gospel through that? Like, I've never, with being on this team, I've just seen honestly through you, okay, this is happening now. How can we, talk about this and give this through a fresh perspective? Yeah. So I'm grateful the fact that you even going from one, I guess, I don't mean livelihood, I guess culture to another, soaking it up, you know what I'm saying? Because people can get intimidated by that and really go into their shell. Yeah. And when we come back, I'm going to tell some people more things that the vital role you play here at Reach, and then even also how that transpires to people's lives at home. So don't go anywhere. It's the 116 Live here on Holy Culture Radio, Sirius XM Channel 140. We'll be right back. And we're back here on the 116 Life here on Holy Culture Radio, Sirius XM Channel 140. We got Joe Malone here, who is the marketing operations director here at Reach. But here's another thing that for some of you guys who do not know, and this is a very happy bragging moment I get. This is also very cool having Joe on because Joe is the producer of the 116 Life. So I know you see Ace and myself up here, but of course, along with shout out to Matt and D, Joe. Hear me when I say, if Joe was not a part of this, we would fall apart. We really would. A lot of episodes and conversations we've had about rest, talking about CHH being in its own world. A lot of great conversations we've had have been powered through Joe. So if there's anyone, if y'all like this show, y'all really need to thank this guy because he's really been played a big part to what this show was about. How did you get into producing 116 Life?
Yeah, I mean, I think I mentioned Marcus earlier. This was kind of an idea he had like a long time ago. Honestly, we were like, we were just talking about how like, you know, the 116 movement is a lifestyle, and like we don't. I think at that time podcasts were starting to like really become a thing, and we were like, man, we should talk more about what does it actually look like to live that life. We all know, or like everyone that is tapped in knows about the music and knows about, you know, hip hop, faith, culture, but like, what does that look like in the day to day? What does that look like with with what's going on in the world? Like, how are we wrestling with those things? And so we were like, yeah, we got to start a podcast. And yeah, I remember working on some of the initial branding with him, and then the opportunity came through with Holy Culture. Shout out to Trig. And we were like, oh, let's make this a radio show on Sirius XM. And then it just went from there. And so at the time, you know, I was like super just involved with content ops. And so, you know, bringing in our producers and, you know, fleshing out just all the details around like, what is this content going to look like? And just kind of, you know, it's definitely a team effort. I think I'm just kind of like that person that brings everybody together, shares the vision, and then lets everyone else bring all their skills and talents to what's happening. And so, yeah, that's how I kind of got involved. And then I think since then it's just been cool. Like you said, it's like, really, I'm just like every week, you know, checking in with y'all and we're bringing up some potential topics, maybe some people that we think would be good to be on the show. And then, you know, I think in that process, we just start to have conversations about like, how could this conversation, how could it be helpful to people? And it's fun to be able to contribute to what that is, and then watch y'all really kill it and carry it out from there.
Honestly, Joe, I'm very grateful for you because when it comes to like, these are things that people don't see off air, but the insight, like a lot of the conversations we have, the episodes where it's just Ace and I, when we talk about rest or black music and a whole lot of other things, you and DE and Matt, y'all play a big part, and like everyone's perspectives really like add to the conversation. A lot of the time, I feel guilty sometimes. I'm like, Joe really said this, but I'm the one to say that because I'm on air. But you know, I gotta give credit where it's due.
You always give credit.
You know what I'm saying? So it's like what is it like even for you? Keeping a show so engaging and so even like you were talking about current, not even just to listeners, but even in the Christian landscape. Yeah.
I mean, I think it's just being like kind of fluid and willing to pivot. You know, we're not like planned out months ahead of like, these are all of our conversations. We have ideas and different things. But I think it's just, in a sense, being a little bit fluid, watching what's happening, maybe seeing if there's, if we feel like led to kind of talk on those topics. And then whenever something like that isn't there, just like thinking about, you know, I guess for our listeners, like conversations that, you know, maybe feel natural to us. But for our audience, it's like, oh, this is something to consider, or like, something to kind of like challenge maybe how you've thought about X, Y, and Z for your whole life. Again, I feel like that's just like what the 116 Life is about. It's just like getting into new spaces, spaces where you're uncomfortable, spaces that are unfamiliar, and being unashamed with your faith and talking about the complexities of what that looks like.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Before we wrap, I do want to ask you this, because you've been here and I can only imagine how involved you are when it comes to the things dropping here at Reach.
Yeah.
Do you have any like a story or like of your favorite moment when it came to like working behind a rollout for a project or for a campaign or anything like that?
Yeah. A story. Probably one of my favorite things that I've worked on here is the God Made a Way remix video with RG. And I think it's one of my favorite just because it was like a merging of a lot of interests, and RG and I were just like clicking on the direction, and I got to be really hands-on with the production and, you know, go out with him and shoot it. And I really do just love like just pure creativity. Like I love storytelling, but sometimes it's just like, man, I just want to see something that's really beautiful and like fun. And I feel like that's what we got to accomplish on that shoot. And it was just a really fun process planning that with him. You know, I was able to pull in a great brand out in California, Iconic Club, that's all kind of in on car culture. And the whole concept was like street car culture and bringing that energy to the video with that being such an upbeat song. And it just felt like there were no obstacles with that rollout, which is like really the name of the game here, is just kind of dealing with setbacks or obstacles. But that was one of my favorites. And then another one too was when COVID hit. We all started working from home for like a year, and the opportunity just kind of came up out of that, where I was just gaming all the time. And I grew up doing that. I mentioned that. But you know, in my free time, it was like, oh, I'm working at home on my desk. And then what else is there to do? I'm just sitting inside.
Yeah, right.
The idea just came up for me for like starting a gaming community arm of 116. Because I'm just like, there's undoubtedly, it's such a huge industry. Like there's probably so many people who love this music that are like tapped into this, to this culture. And so I was like, I'm gonna start this. And we were able to kind of build a community of like close to 2,000 people, you know, started streaming on Twitch, just having conversations about like what we're doing now, just talking about life and faith and playing games and connecting with people. And eventually a like Bible study came out of that, and I was able to meet like just like a handful of amazing people that became lasting friends. So that's like, that's definitely one of my favorite things I've done here.
One of the things you said that stood out to me was creativity. And I think sometimes people will think that if you're not submerged, if you're not an artist and you're on the other side of this office, great example, they think there's no creativity that comes with that. But marketing, can you talk about how marketing and creativity can go hand in hand? Yeah.
I mean, when you think about how marketing and creativity can go hand in hand. Yeah, I mean, I think to present something to somebody, you have to capture their attention. And to capture someone's attention to first even consider what you're offering to them, you need to like show them something that is interesting and that's I don't know, just maybe strikes a chord and makes them want to tap in. And I feel like that's where creativity really comes in. It's like how you present something really matters. And there's so many ways to be creative, whether it's through the story that you're telling or visually how you're like packaging something. And to my comment earlier, I think I get really excited when it's just kind of raw creativity without storytelling necessarily and how you would expect it. Like, oh, here's a very clear narrative that you can just see happen. Or like, I don't know, or there's like words on screen telling you like, I love when when we're able to just kind of like let the music speak for itself and put something just visually inspiring and interesting alongside of it.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, I think it's super important. But that's where I like personally get excited and drawn to, is those things.
Yeah. Being here for 6 years, you could, like I was saying earlier, you could be anywhere. You know, like
Sure.
you could have started here and gone off, but I've heard so many people say great positive things about being here.
Oh,
and
sure.
asking you personally,
Yeah.
what's kept you here at Reach for the past 6 years? Like, why continue to say, what is it that you love the most about being here?
Yeah. Well, when it comes to the music industry, or even just company culture in general, I think Reach is like the gold standard. What's kept me here is the people. I think, you know, when you're in the building and you're doing the work, as a fan growing up, like you saw the impact that everything was happening, but when you're in here doing the work, like you don't really see the impact as much until you get out there, which there are always moments for that are so encouraging. But what you do see when you're in the mix is just like, just how great the people are here.
Yeah.
How like in an industry that can be challenging or even tempting in some ways to kind of like fall out of who God has called us to be. Like there are people here genuinely trying to show up and be and exemplify Christ, and like find new ways to reach new people. And it is just easily the biggest joy to show up and get in the lab with good people and be creative and laugh and have fun and focus on a mission and try to accomplish it together. So
Yeah.
that's what gives me life, and Reach has an abundance of that here.
Yeah, we talked about a lot, even off air. I was saying this before we even dove into this segment, that I wish you were recording when we were off air.
Yeah.
Talking about kind of like just summarizing everything, just when it came to just like you talking about you diving into being uncomfortable and complexity, diving into those complexities and like avoiding things that are surface. Looking back on, I guess, just the evolution of who you are or who you were and then who you've grown to be.
Yeah.
What's been the most rewarding part about seeing just who you've just grown to be with the 116 life you're currently living? What's been the most rewarding part about seeing the evolution of who you've become?
I feel like when I think about how I grew up and just kind of like how I started behaving, I was telling you, like, I think I just became super focused on doing the right thing and making other people proud of me. And it was a very selfish intention, I think, at that time. I was just very concerned with what people thought and what it set me up to do. And even to this day, I think it's always a temptation. But I think the most rewarding part in coming here and being with Reach is just been learning throughout that process that it's not about me, and that life is not just as simple as making the right choice, that it's very complex. Yes. And yeah, just embracing that complexity has led to so many amazing, beautiful moments, and developing great relationships with people, growing personally, learning more about who God is, and it's just brought so much more life. It's not rewarding to just like show up every day and feel stressed or concerned with doing the right thing so people can affirm you. Nobody wants to live that kind of life. And you know, I think in being here, I've been able to learn that. It's so much better to show up, to serve, to show up, serve, and dive into the complexity and learn and grow along with other people who are after the same thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm proud of you, Joe.
Thank you.
No, I only say that because with honestly, even being transparent, I feel like this is the most I've even gotten the chance to learn about you.
Yeah,
you know what
yeah.
I'm saying? So for the circumstances at hand, and then even just being open to ultimately like just change, you know what I'm
Yeah.
saying? And just growing as a person, and just casting things off like the approval of people, and just kind of really walking into what God has for you. That's not easy, you know? And you did that head on, and therefore we're able to embrace who you are because of those things. So thank you for being on this week's show.
Thank
we hope
you.
that you guys got the chance to enjoy the show as well. As always, it's 116 Live here on Holy Culture Radio, Sirius XM Channel 140, and we'll see you guys next week.
Peace and love.